Well, I'm delighted to be here once again with Matt Dyer, CEO of Merchants Fleet. Matt, welcome to this edition of State of the Fleet Industry video series.
Hey, Chris, nice to be with you again. Hope all's well.
Yeah, it certainly is. Well, hey, let's dive in. Never a dull moment in fleet, certainly.
True. Yeah.
Um, I'm just gonna dive right into our first question. I mean, like we've been trying to process what post-COVID looks like, right? I mean, maybe it's less post-COVID and new normal.
Yeah.
How do you see what does the new normal look like to you in Merchant Fleet?
Yeah, I think good question. I think we definitely are in a new normal. I think there's a number of things that come to mind, Chris, when we talk about that. We're in the era where fleet is really seen as being a strategic asset within organizations. Why? Because it's driving the top line and the success of their businesses. It's driving revenue, it's driving fulfillment rates, it's contributing to client retention. So important topics come to mind like uptime,
Yeah.
but it's not just uptime, it's also total cost of ownership. We're in the era where companies have been used to running vehicles for longer because of OEM allocations. So TCO is crucial. Plus, we have elevated costs. Interest rates are up, cap costs are up, in life services are up, maintenance, repair. So we have to be super vigilant around all these areas. And that puts a really high expectation on how we need to show up for our clients.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's just dig into all of these points here. I mean, I think that 2026 is going to be the year where uptime is crucial more so than ever. Repair times have elongated, repair costs have elongated. What levers can fleet managers pull to to increase uptime and shrink the time that they're out of service, those
Yeah,
units?
first and foremost, I'll talk about how important each individual service is to uptime. It's crucial that we are making sure we have really clear focus on getting a vehicle back out on the road or on the road and compliant as quickly as possible. So, when it comes to all things title and registration, when it comes to how we're making sure where we can approve maintenance costs in the best possible way, if necessary, using auto approvals, how we make sure our responsiveness is at a very high level so we can have drivers or fleet responsibles have their questions answered and get vehicles back on the road as quickly as possible. It goes right through the in-life services that we have along the way. But of course, it's a partnership. The
Yeah.
reason that fleet's a strategic asset, it makes it a partnership between both sides. So where we look at each of these areas, there are opportunities to improve. I look at maintenance, for example, policies on spend limits. When you've got maintenance costs going up 5 to 6% a year, your spend limits have to go with it along the way, and really getting to a heightened level of policy that can help support the right cost control and auto approvals. Same on the renewal side, making sure that where we have client requirements, these can be solved and resolved and fulfilled as quickly as possible really makes a big difference. So I really see it as another great dimension of the partnership that we need to have in place with our clients.
Yeah, I mean, there's things that fleet managers can do. You can throw up your hands and say that, maintenance times are elongated, but there's things that fleet managers can do within their own processes, right? I mean, you said you mentioned policies, revisiting your policies, consistent revisiting of your policies, and
Yeah,
working with, your FMC, of course.
absolutely. I think, you know, it's so important that we show up with that partnership mindset, Chris,
Yeah.
because that's the expectation that is there. We have a role to play to bring the right topics to the table. And knowing our clients as I do, I know they're very proactive in wanting to engage on topics like this.
Let's talk about total cost of
Yeah.
ownership. Um, and and I mean cap costs going into these vehicles, they're not going down. I mean, we're at the highest level they've ever been. How can fleets manage cap costs and TCO in
Well,
2026?
I mean, listen, it's a hot topic. I think actually I made the point with you when we did this session last year.
Yeah.
You know, TCO is still highly relevant and a high priority. Um, so this is also about being agile, because the situation is changing a lot. Yes, as you say, we've seen average transaction prices, even though they've come down in the last couple of years, they're still at an elevated level compared to where the market was used to in 2018, 2019. So it means that we need to be, very constantly reviewing opportunities to make sure we can control the TCO in the right way. And it's not just cap costs, it's interest rates. We're in a new environment compared to where we were 4 or 5 years ago. And of course, right now, everyone's going to have a very keen eye on fuel prices because
Yeah.
of the oil price inflation. So it really is one of these topics where it needs much more frequent touch points. Actually, if I look at our consulting engagements, they were up over 40% year on year last year. That
Wow.
shows that this topic is highly relevant. And, the winners will be those that can get the right assessment and make the decisions in the right way. And, windows will open and opportunities will open in the right way to really get a preferential TCO.
So I really wanted to get to order to delivery time. We've seen OTD ameliorate somewhat, but what are the pressures there in 2026?
Well, I think, in the new norm, we don't take anything for granted, right? So, we did see order to delivery times improve. Our order delivery times were actually improved by over 20% year on year last
Right.
year. So that's really good progress. I do relate this to the TCO, because once a customer has committed to replace vehicles, they want that improved TCO on the road as quickly as possible. So it's our responsibility to make sure we do focus there. But it also brings me back to the partnership. How do we work together in with our clients? So, for example, with upfit specs, increasingly looking for standardization, not too much customization, working with preferred partnerships that we have in place so we can drive the expediting in the right way. Uh, Always areas to improve along the way. But of course, I will call out adaptability. I think the era that we've been in the last 3, 4, 5 years, we take nothing for granted. So that means there could need to be a willingness to look at alternative OEMs, alternative vehicles, in order to sort of make sure that the client can achieve what they need to achieve.
Sure. So breadth of OEMs, right? I mean, that
Yeah,
was the COVID thing that we needed to do, right? And that's still in this era. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So connected vehicles, I mean, it almost feels like telematics and connectivity is table stakes, but
Yeah.
what's your take?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, it's a much more relevant topic. It's being talked about much more than it was before. And I think there's a real maturity now around the awareness of how connected vehicle data combined with other important data, whether it's fuel spend, maintenance spend, whether it's contributing to a risk profile around the fleet. I think people recognize that this is an important foundation that's going to make for smarter decision making. And yes, for sure, that will contribute to total cost of ownership and replacement cycles. But I also see this really contributing on the utilization side.
Okay.
Connected vehicle really drives greater utilization. And this is also a new norm. What's had to happen is companies have had to hold vehicles, maybe even sometimes more vehicles for longer because not having the confidence on new production coming through. So, how do you make sure you get the best possible utilization out of those vehicles? We see it through the fleet share platform that we have in place. You need
Mhm.
connected vehicle, which is really giving you that constant input and does give you the ability to have greater awareness, access of that vehicle, get the utilization on it that's needed, and see significant percentages. I almost describe it as getting better utilization for the TCO, so you get more productivity out of it. And it all comes back to the first point. Fleet's
Yeah.
a strategic asset, it's driving revenue, top line of the business. So that's another element of greater productivity from a fleet perspective.
Sure. Well, to cap it off, um, you know, fleet leaders, fleet managers, they have to make so much more decisions today. I mean, compared to 10 years ago, they have so many more things to worry about, but they've got so many more opportunities to solve problems. They've got merchants has so much more a breadth of a portfolio of things to take advantage of. But how do you see that all playing out?
Yeah, I would fully agree with that, Chris. If I look at, our fleet decision makers, they've really elevated over the last few years, and the scope of decision making that they have to go through is really broad. I reflect on that for our business. It is so important that we really have the breadth of offering that's required. And that includes not just the breadth of services, but the ability to provide vehicles, yes, for a long term perspective, but also on a variable basis or on a rental basis. It's that breadth that you really need. But yeah, if you look at how companies are needing to set their strategy to maximize uptime, to constantly be scanning TCO, to set the right replacement sides, and then have the right partnerships in place. It's so important. And I would add in, it's important that we show up in that way.
Yeah.
We really do believe in making sure we have multiple partners from our side in the relationship with our clients. It's not just point to point, it's having the upfit capability, the consulting capability. It's a multi-layered relationship to really reflect the elevation in decision making that our fleet decision makers really now need to go through.
Well, for sure. Well, listen, Matt, I look forward to connecting next year and we'll see what a whirlwind 2026 was, right? And then we'll set sail for 2027.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah.
It's going to be another exciting year, Chris. So looking forward to it and looking forward to catching up with you again very soon.